All right. It is time. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our live webinar on how engineering teams are really using AI. These days, we hear about some new big AI advancement like almost every other day, and like marketing teams from these AI coding tool companies would have you believe that human developers are getting obsolete, or you don't need any coding experience now to get into software engineering. And we were reading a lot of these articles and headlines on Twitter and LinkedIn every day. And we actually have a company Slack channel where engineers from our team share how they are using AI and what benefits they are seeing. So we had like almost all of our engineering team share what tools they are using and what benefits they are getting. And I went through those chats, and what I realized was that the actual experience of engineers was like totally different to what I was seeing and hearing from these AI coding tool marketing companies, like not marketing companies, but the marketing of these companies. And that's led me to write a blog about how our engineering team, like how MetalBear's engineering team is using AI. And that blog was like really well received. People loved how authentic we were, and like they like our experience resonated with them, which gave us the idea of having this webinar where we would invite more engineering leaders from different companies to shed light on how their teams are using AI, if they are getting any benefits out of it, or if it's not delivering the results they expected. Which is why today we are doing this webinar, and I have with me an amazing panel of engineering leaders from different companies. So I'm going to ask you all to quickly introduce yourselves, but other than a simple introduction about your name and job title and company, I also want you to share, like in a line or two, like which coding tool or just in general AI tool you are personally using, and like what are you using for the most. Should we start with you, Roopak?
Absolutely. Hi all, I'm Roopak Parikh. I'm one of the co-founders as well as CTO at Platform 9. We are based out of sunny California. We offer enterprise-grade private cloud management products, primarily as a VMware alternative uh, with virtualization and container management, so on and so forth. Happy to be here. Our journey with AI coding started in 2024 with Codium, if folks who are familiar with it. Then we moved on to Windsurf in 2025. The team is also using Claude Code and Cursor, depending upon which team you're talking about. UI engineers like Cursor, backend engineers like Windsurf, and then people who are completely in the terminal like Claude Code. So that's where we are. But we also use other toolings, including Claude and Gemini, based upon different subscriptions that we have internally for various other use cases, not only just coding.
Luca, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hello, everybody. So I'm Luca, and now Fractional CTO, former also VP of Engineering for Jimdo, and in the past I've been CIO at Arduino. So yeah, being a Fractional CTO now gives me the opportunity to basically test pretty much everything and anything. For personal productivity, I mostly use Cloud Code, but I've seen really teams using any kind of tool, and especially moving from one tool to another. So I've seen entire companies moving from ChatGPT Codex to Cursor and then to Cloud Code. Now most of them are effectively using Cloud Code, but something interesting is also happening in Europe, where I see many companies using now open source models like Quinn mostly to develop their own internal AI tool, or at least a mix of RAG systems and their own infrastructure and documentation to build somehow some custom LLMs. That's especially about LLMs. Plus, I see a kind of a return into using machine learning algorithms that are still extremely productive in many cases. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, would you like to go next?
Yeah, hi folks. My name is Michael. I'm from a company called Monday. I'm leading the internal DevX AI, and mostly I think, to summarize, my job is to propagate Cloud Code all around. And the journey happened actually for Monday 1.5 years ago with Cursor. That was the first mania of realizing that, hey, we don't have to write code by ourselves anymore. But something roughly around a year ago when I joined, I saw the photo back then, Cloud Code, they didn't even have plan mode. I remember that because I was trying to hack it up by writing prompts. And I had a sense of, hey, something is going to really transform in the way we work. Why should I see the code behind what I'm doing? I'm just trying to build something. I'm trying to push my idea. And here afterwards, most of our company is split between Cursor and Cloud Code. But I think our main challenge is the transformation to something we call agentic engineering, in a sense, how we delegate and leverage those smart coding agents, smart beings all across the SDLC. So that's my challenges on the day-to-day.
I think so far that I'm hearing Cloud Code and Cursor seem to be like everywhere. Jen, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Sure. I'm Jenn Kunz. I'm a manager of analytics engineers at PlayStation. I have to be clear, I don't speak for PlayStation. There are a lot of folks at PlayStation who are putting a lot of time and thought into AI. And that's not a main part of my job, but I do use AI, and I have engineers on my team that use AI. So I tend to use Copilot just because it's the most easy to connect to with our whole ecosystem. It's connected into our Git repos and things like that. But it feels like we kind of have all of the main models represented. Other than Gemini, I don't see a lot of, but yeah.
That is true. Like even for like when we were asking our engineers internally, Gemini felt like the least favorite, at least for coding. Like I'm on the marketing side, so we use a lot Gemini for like image generation, but like for coding, I think it is maybe lacking behind. That's why we don't hear a lot of teams mention it. Cool. So I have like, I want to cover a lot of different themes, and I'm going to ask you each some questions which I thought were relevant to your experience. And I'm sure like others would have opinions on it as well. So I'll ask a question to a person, but if you have anything to add to it, please feel free to do so after they're done answering. So my first question was for Jen, actually. Like, I just want you to maybe elaborate. So you said you're using GitHub Copilot, but like what other tools are you using, and were you always on Copilot or did you switch, and how has the experience been? And also like, is Copilot like mandate by the company, or like are engineers free to use whatever they want?
I don't think it's mandated, but it is, like I said, I'm using it just because it's the thing that they made the easiest to use for me. I've only been at PlayStation since last June. Before that, I was a consultant, and we happen to have a ChatGPT subscription. So that's when I used then. And so I don't know, I just kind of, whatever's easiest to sign up for and get connected to is what I use. But PlayStation, as you can imagine, is very careful about AI usage and security. So there's a lot of kind of bureaucracy and documentation on you were okay to use this for that purpose. Nothing ever goes to production if it was produced by AI without very specific review processes and things like that. But there's a whole list of all of the different options and how okay it is to use it and whose permission you need to get. So yeah, we're very careful. That said, Cursor I know is very commonly used among the engineers. A lot of, it sounds like folks using models run locally on their machines use Olama. Though as I understand it, a lot of these are just ways to connect into yet other. So you still choose if you want ChatGPT or Gemini or whoever. Like I said, Gemini is the main one I don't hear a lot. And then Copilot is used very heavily for more executive type things of summarize this. We use Microsoft Teams. So, I saw, I think, an infographic last week showing that leadership can say that AI has saved them 12 hours this week, whereas most lower down folks can say it only saved them a few hours. And is it that we're not using it efficiently? I think it's more just that leaders have a lot of things that are easily AI-able, like summarizing meetings and things like that. So definitely see it a lot for that purpose. For translations, we're a very international company and working with peers in Japan particularly. it's very nice to have kind of built-in captions and translations and things like that for Copilot.
That's a interesting use case, which I guess like is more relevant for like when you have like team members spread across the globe. You mentioned something about like anything generated by AI never hits production after a thorough review process. So what does this review process look like today? Is it still like manual engineers, or do you have like AI agents part of the review process as well?
That's a good question, and I'll be honest. I don't know how much I'm at liberty to say, but also the area that I work in, we wouldn't ever have anything really go to production anyways. I work with data collection, so user experience data and things like that. But yeah, all I know is the warnings that I have gotten that do not use this to generate code that will go to production or affect users or deal with sensitive data is the other big red flag all over everything for each engine that we use. Obviously, any of the free versions are just off limits. We don't use. Like there's a list of this is how classified the data can be for this particular, and across the board, the answer is it can't be very classified. Just we do not put sensitive data into AI.
That makes sense. I think that is contrasting with like more of smaller scale companies and startups where like everyone is free. For example, at our company, we are free to use whatever tooling we want, and compared to if you like more permissions, like you said, needed at Sony. That makes sense. Michael, what about you? Like, how is the engineering team at Monday using AI coding tools in their day-to-day workflow? That's what I'm trying to understand from you. Not like, so Jenn provided like a more of higher level summary how the organization is using it. I think you have like more visibility how your engineers are using it day-to-day. Are they finding it like super useful, or is it that senior engineers, like I've heard this take that senior engineers are not getting as much value out of AI models as compared to junior engineers who are just getting started?
It's funny because there's high variance in how people are using. So I'm seeing slow adopters, people that still kind of reluctant of adopting to the day-to-day. For me and my team, for example, it's a game changer. I'm trying to push a narrative for like our engineering experience that help us to go through. And just to give you an example, within a week, we've been able to build a system that would take roughly months of work easily, with a vision, understanding how to put the boundaries, for example, how the testing going to look like, how to create a proper feedback loop, and how do we ensure that it actually meets its purpose. And for some, it's a power tool that help us to be 10x engineers. And I truly mean by that, it's not only about just writing the code, but doing the whole end-to-end operations, making sure that you have the right feedback, making sure that you're measuring it properly and you know how it's going to do the bottom line impact. Now, I think our main challenges is more about how you show that path. And that's something that really relates to imagination, I think. The amount of things we're able to do, some of us, is because we have naivety in a sense and curiosity. There's a lot of things that I'm just asking whether it can do. And I'm always surprised by the amount of parts. Yeah, I just even a few days ago, I had an example of people asking about a specific feature within Cloud Code that doesn't work for them. So I asked them, why not ask Cloud Code about that? And it was like mind-blowing for them. So back to your question and how it looks like, we're trying to push all of us to work without writing code by ourselves. And next month, going to be a month without writing code manually. So all of our engineering team, which is around almost 1,000 people by now, will not write a single line of code by themselves. And that's amazing for me.
Wow, that sounds like a really big move. So when you have like engineers, like generating most of their code, what does the like role of the engineer change into, and how are your engineers like reviewing that code? Is it that you have like a CI process, or is it engineers manually reading that code? How does testing and integration for that code work then?
It's a combination. We're trying to frame it as a new type of job, an orchestration engineer, and we do leverage many coding agents. So we do have at least 2 automated code reviews platforms. And also we have our own internally developed one. Realize that most of the open solution out there, they're very generic And within Monday, we have history of more than a decade of how we review the code. So we just build our own, again, based on Cloud Code, nothing fancy, but we did our own RAG. We index the different personas within the different groups, how they act, how they think, what are the boundaries of the system they care about. And the efficiency of the code review became way bigger than just taking random, yet another product outside that has a very good sense on maybe code smells, but not about how Monday specifically works. And that also increased trust in the code review, because then people know, hey, that code review acts like I would. And that helps people to accept that, hey, maybe it's a good PR.
Yeah, I think that I've seen this, like people take this approach where instead of going through the hassles of training your own model, like you basically take an existing model, like you said, Cloud Code, and give it all the historical context about how a review process is Monday looking like, and then do that. So what I'm getting from your answer was like, is Cloud Code the primary AI coding tool and model you all use, and how did you settle on that? Like, did you try a bunch of models and then settled on Claude, or was it just always Claude and you never had problems?
So it was Django up to a few months ago. Honestly, we had, I think, 5 or 6 different tools. But at this point of time, it's a requirement to converging, because I heard previously like people saying, hey, it's very easy to jump between the tools. And I think it was, but not up to this point where we do have heavy investment in at least one of them, building guardrails, understanding the internals, hooks, and so on and so forth. So today it's primarily Cursor and Cloud Code, but with a slightly distinguished. Cursor is still the leading solution as the go-to agent for developers, and Cloud Code is serving us throughout the automated phases of the SDOC. So it both serves as a local coding agent, but it also a remote agent. Every time PR is being open, we're triggering an agent to gather context and maybe review. Every time a deployment happens, we have an agent to ensure it works well. So Cloud Code is 100% of our coding agent for the majority of the path, and Cursor is still the local leading.
Yeah, I guess like you can also like use the Claude models with Cursor, right? So Cursor, I think, does a better job of providing you the UI of like the code editor, like the AI code editor of the future, and then you can just use the Claude models with that, which I hear are doing like a lot better job compared to the competition when it comes to generating code. Thank you for that. I think that was like a really detailed answer on the processes you've been doing. I think it's really interesting. Please update us how the next month at Monday goes, where everyone's generating code instead of writing it themselves. I think that would be a really cool experiment. My next question is to you, Roopak. Sorry?
I wanted to quickly add an interesting pattern that I observed with some of the customers that I'm following. And many of them value also the diversity of the review made by another model. So the most interesting and highest quality PRs that we have seen were produced by one single LLM, and then another one picked the review. That's where I've seen the most interesting results effectively. I don't know if you also test that at Monday as an example.
Like having a totally different model review than the original model which created the PR. That's interesting.
I completely agree. Like the main reason why we still keep in the different vendors and we have 2 external vendors for code review is to have that different point of views. Some of them have mixture of different models, and some of them have a mixture of different guidance or instruction set. So it very helps. But to the bottom line, we're trying to speak more about the agent rather than the model, if that makes sense.
Yep. Cool. My next question is to Roopak. I think he would have an interesting take on this because of what Platform 9 Systems does. So what about using AI for things other than coding, like infrastructure management or monitoring? Are you using AI for that at all? Like I've seen some companies promise that. Is that marketing, or how much of that is real, like, letting AI manage your Kubernetes clusters or provision infrastructure and auto scaling and all of that?
What we did at Platform 9 was look at the whole SDLC. Michael spoke about one portion of the SDLC, which is development review, spec development review, QA. So we definitely use them. But we have at Platform 9, one of our company values is customer obsession. And for the longest time, not longest time, still is, we pride ourselves in reliability of our systems that we run for our customers. We use, like you mentioned, Arsh, we use Kubernetes as the underlying infrastructure. We also use AWS. We also have on-prem installations. We have virtual machines. We have containers. We use open source tooling. And what we have found is these LLMs are really good, specifically the open source tools. They're really good at operating, for example, Kubernetes API or kubectl, which is the CLI to manage the infrastructure. And what we have been able to do is write a few extensions, really MCP servers, more than a few, and we're writing more, which connect to these LLMs. Specifically, I spoke about how we use Windsurf. We are starting to use Cloud Code. All of them connect to these tools. And these tools can then be used to not only look at, not only develop, but they can also interrogate the system. As an example, if you have, let's say, 50, 60 microservices running, maybe more, and then you have a challenge where you're seeing a problem in one of the components, or you do not know which components you're having an issue. So what we have done is we have described our deployment to these LLMs. We have written an internal agent which describes our deployment of these microservices, who depends upon what, the definition, what they do, and combined with this LLM sense of these open source tooling, we are able to find and pinpoint the problem very quickly. Let's say a customer says, hey, something is not working. I'm not able to deploy my virtual machines. Okay, what does it mean? Hey, it may have a challenge with the network, the compute, or storage, security, so on and so forth, quota. All of that data we are giving it to the LLMs. People call it context engineering. That's really what we are doing, where we are giving the LLMs more and more context. And once they have the context, they're helping us figure out the root cause of these challenges. Sometimes it's a performance problem because we're not giving enough CPUs or memory to specific microservices. Sometimes there are issues in the system, like bugs that we have discovered. Sometimes it's, hey, user just forgot to do XYZ. It was a prerequisite step, and one of the system was not even configured properly. So we have been able to do it. Does it work 100% of the time? Absolutely not. We have had issues where it does not work. It probably works 50, 60% of the time. But even at that rate, we are able to help ourselves resolve customer problems very, very quickly. So that's one area that we are investing heavily on. Just like Michael, we are in the process of creating our own internal agents, such that as soon as the system is running and a problem is reported, we go and look at it. And even further, how can we proactively start diagnosing issues when things are deployed or even in a steady state, because our customers can use our systems more in the daytime, not so much in the nighttime. And from time to time, they may have bursts of their activities, which may cause challenges in our system. The other area where we have been able to really use this technology is not just engineering, but also like sales. We serve to enterprise customers. They have, a lot of times they have tons of security questions that they send to us. We have compliance documents. We use Atlassian, Rovo, and we have Notebook LLM. So we fed all our compliance document, our security policies, our controls that we have created, dumped into those tools, and you can really ask questions about, hey, how do you do backup? How do you do DR? Or how do you do encryption of secrets at rest? How do you do encryption in transit, so on and so forth? So all of that information is available to us, to our sales team, right out of the box without asking or involving an engineer. It used to take me and some of the other engineers hours and hours to review these 300 questionnaires that would come from our customers asking about our security practices, so on and so forth. So those are some of the other areas where we have been able to use AI to accelerate and get back to our customers quickly or solve some of the issues that our customers are facing.
Yeah, I didn't mention it, but that's one of the biggest things, at least for my team, has been the retrieval augmented generation, just hooking it up to our Git repos and our lots and lots and lots of technical documentation, just to be able to ask it questions of, hey, how is this particular dimension being used? Or what is the privacy policy book behind that? So that's been maybe the biggest use my team has gotten, has merely just been making sense of all of the documentation and code that we've got sitting around from over the years.
Yeah. One more thing that I would like to mention, we use Windsurf, and they have this feature called as Deep Wiki, which kind of creates documentation for a repo. It's kind of a live documentation. It's extremely useful, specifically if you have new engineers come in and they don't really understand the flow and the modules out of the box. Some of these things can really generate good documentation about your repositories. So I would recommend anyone who is looking to do that, use those tools. Some of those tools are actually available freely for public repositories as well. So in my personal time, I would look into, hey, how does open code works? It's an open source repository. Let me look at the Deep Wiki documentation, and I can ask questions about that particular code directly without even trying it out.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard anyone in our team use Windsurf, but that does seem like a really interesting use case, and I'm going to highlight it to our team and try it out. I was looking at chat, and I think we have a question, Michael. I think it would be better if you take this. But someone's asking, for bigger organizations like Monday, do you have agreements that the AI vendor does not use session data to train their models?
Correct. Even though we had a Django in the tools, but we never use more than 2 exactly vendors, which are cloud providers. Even with the Cloud Code, we're not using Anthropic's deployment. We're going for our third parties. So any AI consumption must be throughout a proven sub-processors. That's a good limitation, but it is a limitation, a proper constraint, I would paraphrase it.
So does that mean you are hosting the models like yourself on your own infrastructure?
No, we do leverage AWS Bedrock and GCP solutions. We are cloud native. It's just for that, for example, if someone wants to try a tool that using OpenRouter, not going to happen. If you want to spin up your own model, it has to be throughout security phases. You cannot just download anything from Hugging Face and spin it up. So we prefer to perhaps pay the extra premium and having safe and secure access to LLMs rather than doing something which is open and unbounded.
I saw Jenn agreeing a lot with this. I'm assuming it's the same story.
Yeah, very much so.
We have another question, and feel free to take whoever wants to answer this. What do the human guardrails in development lifecycle actually look like? So primary decisions around tech stack, architecture, application design, and standards. I think Adna's asking, where are the humans involved to not let the AI reign free and create chaos? So where do you see the most amount of human intervention in the process?
I can comment on that, and then would like to hear from others too. We always have a human in loop, at least today. We don't have a one-shot PR which gets checked in. Everything is reviewed by human. I spoke about how we are leveraging these LLMs and AI to help us debug situations. Even in those cases, while it's possible to just reply to customers directly from these AI and LLMs, we always have a new human in the loop, at least for now, where they look at the efficacy of the solution, and we have seen situations where it is wrong. So we always have that, including even the specification before we give the project or a feature to LLMs to code. We have that human review in the middle.
Personally,
Sorry, go ahead, Michael.
I just wanted to say for us, like I'm trying to lead us something that I believe truly in, that code doesn't matter anymore. I can just give you an example of a project. One of our teams had to build something with high performance constraints. They took Rust. Nobody there knows Rust, but we were able to deliver product in Rust quite fast. But what we did have, an understanding on how to define the architecture and what's the product outcome. What the problem we're trying to solve, how to articulate it, what are the goals, non-goals, and just well define it. That's the part where human and AI do collaborate together, like this ping pong of exploring, gathering context, and achieving these baseline definitions. And then language doesn't matter anymore. Like most of those things don't change anything. What you do care about is the scope and environment. So for example, performance is an amazing example. I had just that experience a few months ago of letting Cloud Code connect to Grafana locally, take the metrics, evaluate itself, profile itself, and just benchmark itself, fix, all completely autonomous. But I was able just to give it the right environment for a feedback loop. So even that, I think, that's the key, the definition and then the ability to define the feedback loop. All the rest, well, obviously meeting production, but all the rest, less human.
Yeah, I think that this question was also a good segue to what I was just about to ask Luca, which was mostly about, like, since he works with like multiple companies and teams, so it was more about like how much human intervention is required, and like do you see agents working on features end to end, like in a lot of organizations, like Michael said, Monday's taking the step like next month, or is it still like assisted by humans? Like, is it human supervised development whereas the agents are writing the code? Or do you feel like we are just very close to autonomous agents doing everything from end to end themselves?
I would say both in this way. I believe the code never was the point. Actually, even before this advent of AI LLM, bottleneck of companies was never writing the code. At least if it was, then you had a different problem. So I think it is becoming more and more clear that the real agentic workflow, everything that matters is to understand exactly what you want. And then you can decide how much to delegate the how to eventually specific agent, or even use some super sophisticated tools like, I don't know, Gastown, or something simpler like they just released Loop or Ralph for Cloud Code or whatever. It doesn't matter. So now I believe you just have more options to understand when you want to jump in and when not, when it deserves to jump in and make sense, is worth it, and when it is not. So I see, especially for startups, then they are eventually even just doing everything completely automated, and then leave some customer figure out, and they can take this risk. No, they're basically having someone else doing the test for them or the review, which is sometimes even the customers. For some other business, you cannot afford that. So you can create huge damage if that doesn't meet all the requirements that you have. Big example where people might be more cautious is in the fintech. And I also have some customers there. In that case, everything is a lot more restricted. So I see it is already possible to completely delegate even decisions to these systems and AI more in general. What happens is two things. Sometimes you just go into a dead end and then you have to recover and restart either from scratch or from whatever you are able to identify that you took a dead end or a dead branch. Or the other case is, I say, when you figure out that what's happening is not something that you really want deeply. So AI can even do too much for what you want to investigate or explore, and doing too much might give you a solution that is too biased compared to what you wanted to explore, and it is kind of limiting some teams even the whole creativity of the team itself, because they see that solution, they already seen it, and now they cannot think about something completely different. So that's come to a limitation somehow. So again, it depends massively about the industry, about your team, how they mature they are, how much they want to be creative. But in the end, always relies to, are you asking the right question in the right time? And then if it is a human writing the code or AI, effectively, Michael said, it doesn't matter anymore. I believe it never mattered. What changed was the time scale to do the things, but effectively, if you want to do something and you exactly know what you wanted to achieve, it's the same instrument, just way faster. That's it.
I think what you said, like exactly word to word, we echoed, like one of our engineers said, and we wrote it in the blog also, that like when you use AI to, like when you're about to approach a problem or a feature or bug request, and you discuss that with an AI coding agent, that sort of limits your thinking, because whatever solution the AI agent suggests, you start thinking in that direction instead of, first having to explore other ways on your own. I think it's like a double-edged sword. But yeah, I totally agree with that one. So folks, we have like around 25 people and they have been asking questions in chat, and we are already hitting the 41-minute mark. We are live for more like 5-10 minutes. So all the people who are watching, if you have any more questions, please let us know in the chat. Till then, I'll bring up the questions we have been asked so far and you all can take a shot at answering them. So Praveen has asked, in production systems, are teams adopting patterns like RAG and vector search, or are most AI use cases still developer productivity tools? What about using AI in production? Does anyone have any experience or take on that?
Yeah, I can probably also go on this one very quickly. So yes, in production system, teams are adopting RAG and vector search, especially for what I've seen public-facing products. That's quite common, I would say. And even right now, many RAG systems are being abandoned, because if you are working with a huge amount of data, I mean, really like up to many terabytes of data, you start to see all the limitation, and vector search is not more effective because vectors are too close to each other. Then you need very sophisticated system to achieve that. So even some other companies are abandoning RAG system and using, even in that case, agentic search that is still extremely slow to some extent. But this is where the industry is going.
I just could say I agree. Same ways I think most of the companies, at least at certain scale, today adopted RAG and vector search, but as Luca said, it's not that easy. There's a lot of situations where this sparse data could be too much, and you always it always trade-offs. So agentic search perhaps would be good in scenarios that you don't care about latency, and you do care about perhaps solution would achieve better results. And if you want to have like fast responses and certain accuracy, then the production having missing a huge amount of customers' data is not simple. But it's always in the middle, just finding the right trade-offs, I guess.
Yeah. At Platform 9, we are using agentic search a lot. This is all public documentation anyways. and some of the other knowledge base systems that we have. We've been very successful with that.
The other question we have is also related to the first one, I think. So Raja has two questions. The first is that what is your take on giving developers or engineers their own agent? So do you have like individual agents for developers, or like environments where an agent deploys or tests their code in, or do you like, is that I'm assuming that is kind of expensive. So what has everyone's experience been on giving engineers their own agents or environments?
Chaotic if we need to proceed. It's been, I think again, it's going all back to guardrails and how do you preserve way to figure out how you're exploring that. There was scenarios of people doing, well, things that they shouldn't have probably with agents. And yet again, before the agents, they still had same access, right? Like if I could do the same mistake without any like LLM in between. So what's the difference if that LLM helped achieve that? And honestly, in my 15 years in this industry, I saw more situations of people doing harm rather than agents doing harm for now. But it's either being over frightened and then not exploring, or being overexcited and not understanding how to define the right boundaries. But at a certain point, I prefer more exploration and then understanding how to restrict rather than being overprotective at this phase.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with that. And the second question they asked was, I think, something you all touched upon a bit earlier, but that now that agents are integrated into the terminal, especially using RAG, would you allow it in production environments, or do you have a step before that, like till staging it's fine, and in production you need like manual intervention? What does that life cycle look like?
I can take one part of the question. Some of the agents that we have, they are mostly read-only for our systems. That's what we have done. We are not looking to have them modify our systems right now, but they do provide us, like an assistant, provide us analysis of what's happening in the deployment in the custom environments that we might have.
Yeah, it's the same for us. Like I'm less nervous about using RAG in a production situation when we're using it mostly just to retrieve information that then informs what the developers or engineers are doing, rather than writing the code itself.
That makes sense. You were saying, Luca?
Now that with proper guardrail systems, I've also seen it using it directly in production, with agents directly making purchases for entire companies, like effectively moving money. In that case, the guardrail system was indeed quite sophisticated. It's based again on AI, but it has a set of rules that is quite strong. I'm not gonna mention the company because I'm an investor in it. It's gonna be.
So was it like an inbuilt solution, or is it like a company which is providing these solutions, or are these like inbuilt to the customer?
It's a company that is providing these guardrail systems, and there are more than one, of course. And even AWS is providing some effective tools, not that sophisticated, but quite useful, at least for the exfiltration, while some others like this one even prevents the agent to take some specific action, both in the input of the RAG system, but also in the output. So you can check both ways and prevent some instruction to be executed if they are breaking some of the rules that you set.
Yep. Cool. So I think we have enough time to take just one last question quickly. Han has asked, how do you manage code review bottleneck? If AI writes so much code, how do you match the review speed? And it seems like PR review products don't address the problem fully. This is something we heard internally from our engineers as well, that we tried a bunch of like PR review tools and we did not find them very useful. So I would love to hear how you all are like managing, like the rate at which the code is being generated and pull requests are being generated has definitely increased because of agents. But how are you managing like keeping up with reviews and shipping that code?
I'll jump on that. I think very precisely our main challenge is signal to noise ratio, and you see a lot of just noise coming out throughout GitHub or like the main flows of how we work. And for me, I think that's the challenge of the interface rather than how the PR itself works. So if you're looking at GitHub PR, you have a certain interface that just all of the bots commenting, all of their like mentions and comments, and you have thousands of reviews, and it's very hard to navigate throughout what is key, what is important, what's not. And I do think to solve that, you just need to build a new interface, which is not bounded to the same platform as hosting your source control. It's more about helping you to navigate throughout the different areas, because if I changed anything, I don't know, in a CSS and that internal tool, perhaps it's less important than the fact that that internal tool is CLI that maybe, I don't know, doing now RMRF on computers. It's just an examples, but putting the weights on what's the key in the change and the context of the project. And those solutions, even GitHub doesn't adapt it to the new gen, I think.
Maybe we need like a new vibe coded version of GitHub, which has these like features of managing the signal to noise ratio with the AI agents.
I've also seen another kind of crazy approach, but quite interesting. And of course, it's only doable by startups. But one startup moved basically from with PRs directly, instead of having A/B testing, they started to have A, B, C, D, E, F, G testing live, and then basically see the effect of that PR directly on customer and then deciding.
Okay.
And that even like to move it further, some of them switch from a blue-green deployment to like a blue-green, yellow, red, purple deployment, like having effectively multiple version at the same time in production to 2, 3, 5% of their potential customer, seeing what was working and eventually completely refusing what was not, completely skipping the PR reviews as we intend, professional looking at the quality code and so forth. It was just move to production, see what works and what not. Then if it works, you do a proper assessment and you make it robust. Otherwise, it's just out there, which is risky, but I mean, startups can afford it.
Yeah, that's a very living on the edge approach.
PlayStation could not do that.
Cool. That was it. Thank you so much for taking out the time. I really hope everyone who is viewing this live found this informative. If you did, please let us know in the comments. And anyone who signed up for the webinar, you should also get an email with the recording. If not, you can follow MetalBear on LinkedIn or Twitter, and we'll post the recording there as well. And once again, thank you, Roopak, Luca, Michael, and Jenn for taking out time to share your experience with everyone. And I hope you all also enjoyed hearing and learning from each other. And thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely enjoyed the opportunity.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Cool. See you all. Bye.
Yeah, bye. Bye-bye.